had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the sunrise.
I think one of the forces at play in, kind of the separation between a content creator or someone whose maybe primary focus is creating content, but maybe you can see in them, a desire to have more of a focus on making work, or the capacity for them feeling like there's someone like this. It always sounds corny, but just like that person feels like an artist to me, like they're connected to their view, their wonder and curiosity, and how they're looking at the world and creating work that connects to that in ways that they're aware or not aware. I think for me, in feeling the content machine, the thing that I didn't expect, especially when creating some of these other, I thought of them at the time as more of a project. Like I'm just going to document this process of collecting vinyl records. Not that I think that there's any artistry in just like finding cool records and telling people what you got, or even the photo videos channel and now the other photography channel. Part of me is like, I just want to make videos that kind of, because I won't go on too much of a side. A lot of the impulse behind it too was, I think about having lost my dad and how cool it would be to have this.
Yeah, like archive of...
this archive of, even if it's content-y, like this archive of him doing his life.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a sort of fabricated and performative, and there's like a packaging to it. But I would, I'd take any of it, to see that.
I'm not gonna jump in.
So part of like those things factor into making those channels, but the thing that it was unexpected to me across all of them, the ones that feel like they're a little bit more towards, I want this to be a little bit more on the art side than the content side for me personally, even if it ends up feeling like content when you watch the finished product, versus stuff that's like obviously content, like, hey, here's this stuff about Final Cut Pro and let me teach you how to do these three things.
Here's the shtick to the video.
The thing that really sinks its claws into you, you might think, well, I got to make money, or, I got to keep my bank account, and all that stuff factors in. But there's just this feeling like these people are waiting for me to make something. And, for me, something in my brain makes me go, I'm going to lose them if I don't, keep it somewhat regular, or, there's just like this feeling of self-imposed pressure. Like I haven't made
it's almost like it's
for this project
scarcity
in a while.
Related in a sense.
Something.
Like you have something to lose.
It's like watering your plant earlier.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, it's going to die.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like my channel's going to die.
No, I mean,
it's just like something is going to be lost if you don't.
There's like an element of control to it probably, where you're trying to. Yeah.
But then with the work side of things, I mean, you could probably argue that some artists feel pressure to come up with their next thing, especially if they get pulled into the commerce side of the art world. Their first show was a big success. Everybody's waiting for their follow-up. And this happens, I'm sure, for photographers, painters, bands, like when's that next record going to come that feels like
Directors,
the first one?
Any kind of artistic endeavor, because the environment that we release that artistic endeavor to is kind of focused on, it's just kind of focused on a linear track. Like, what is the next thing?
Yeah. And so
if this was good, the next thing will be better, right? Because that's how things progress, and that's how I've been taught that this is supposed to go.
And there's something with someone like Alex Oath where obviously I have no interaction with them. It's just what I see on Instagram or YouTube or, a museum exhibit or something. But there doesn't feel like there's some sense of hurry in
Yeah.
feeding the thing he's created.
Yeah, he doesn't care. From my observation, like one, I don't think good art is ever going to come from good art. Good and art. It's like I'm using the laziest words, and I probably need to be more precise.
Meaningful, or
I mean, so like we kind of use like what did we use like what was the word that we just kind of used for
escape?
Like I mean, just the high, whatever the high, and even that, like we're creating like a stupid structure of, but just something that is individual and that is universal, like at the same time, and that doesn't really
singular yet universal.
It doesn't have any kind of preemptive notion or need to satisfy. Like that, if that is the the pinnacle, or even, I mean, words like pinnacle and things like that, and I'm talking about like against the idea of like a linear progression of art, but just something that is I don't know, just like give it a thumbs up. Like I don't
I know, yeah.
What I need to think of more precise language to describe something to describe it a little more effectively, but even that, I'm like, oh, more effective, less effective, like just stupid. But I don't think that comes from that feeling that you described. I think that's a dangerous thing, because you're not gonna, I mean, yeah, you can create content and and then we can get into discussions about, well, what about consistency, and what about you making, what do people who release a lot, they're like prolific, right? So we can talk about those qualities or things like that, and that's a different discussion, but I don't think these two things are the same thing. And I think what you're getting at is, there's like a pressure to come out with something, and I think that is, it's kind of a fear driven position.
Absolutely.
It is a fear driven position, and I don't think anything thumbs up is going to come from that,
right.
I don't think anything that's
and I think it's somewhat self-imposed. I mean, I think it's irrational to a certain extent, I think if you're providing value to an audience through the content that you make, whether it's sporadic or prolific.
And I think there's a difference too. Like, we're talking about something very specific, and kind of like we're talking about creating, just making sure that was gone. We're talking about something very specific.
Speaking of fear,
artistic output, right? Or whatever that is, whatever that weird, hard to define thing is. And I think there's also just like you could put out content that satisfies a need or an audience or something like that is a different goal.
Yeah.
And you can achieve that and not even ever cross paths with the other thing. And those are two different things. I think that the problems come when you start to cross the two things. And you can, I think the issues come up when, and again, when the issues start to appear is when you're trying to use one thing, like the more commercial idea, to justify the other thing, the more artful output or whatever. And I don't know though. I mean, I would love to see examples of people who have kind of navigated that
Yeah.
more effectively than myself. But yeah, my experience has been, again, that's just my experience. That's the other thing. It's just, yeah, everybody's experience is all that matters to them. Like your own experience is all that matters to you.
Right.
And you can listen to other people's thoughts and feelings and emotions and experiences and, things that they've learned, and it's never going to apply one to one. And that's a misconception we have in our world today.
But I think, the interesting thing in what led to us hitting record, because there was, for those listening and watching, there was, conversation ahead of time that kind of led to this, to where we hit record. A general feeling of like, what role does the creation of content play in helping or hurting the creation of work? And then I wondered, for those photographers that we really hold on high, many of them overlap between the two of us.
We called it like the devotional tier or whatever. Like if we were trying to classify in this,
Well, and I was wondering, so then aside from content, what impact did having to make commercial work or choosing to make commercial work have on their ability to make work? You could argue the money aspect of it helped facilitate that, or did the creative energy that was spent on making commercial work negatively impact their personal work? And then are there examples of, as content creators aspire to be artists as well, once we've had 10, 15, 20, 30 years of people managing both things in their lives, are we going to have an example, or do we already, of someone who makes a lot of content? It's warm out, buddy. You got the system out. Wow. Where that person is a prolific content creator, but then also, are they mutually exclusive?
Well, I think
I don't have a assertion on that, but it's again something that I wonder.
We'll definitely have cases where we look back and you almost say, "Oh, look, they've been doing this the whole time," and then you can kind of contextualize. Again, it's hard because you're classifying somebody else's output, and that's never really a good way to go about anything, I don't think. And I don't even know if this is like a useful or reasonable conversation to be having, but it's there's the chance that you'll look back and you almost give somebody the benefit of the doubt, because it's oh, look, they've been doing this for 30 years. This stuff's not that bad. I think we do that with like certain musicians and things like that.
Yeah.
Time kind of, I don't know. I don't think, I don't think art should be held in some extreme high esteem, but at the same time I do.
Yeah.
And I believe both of those things fully at the same time. And I think that it's easy to go and look back on something after a long period of time has passed and kind of reevaluate it through a lens that might not be. Again, I think the phrase that fits it well is giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
And you're like, oh. And I don't know if that's how. I do think that things can evolve over time. Like maybe you look back and you see something that you just never saw because you had, maybe somebody's creating amazing stuff and they get written off as like a quote unquote content creator for 30 years. And then you look back and you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, the food coloring metaphor comes to mind again, though. I just don't know how well those two things ever mix.
Right. And the question I have is, then let's say there is someone who's making work and they have just a sort of mundane day job. And I don't mean it's not interesting to them or they don't find value in it or they hate it or anything like that, but it just seems, I say mundane in contrast to the excitement I think about if someone is making work, especially with photography. So for example, a Vivian Maier, she's a nanny, right? And she's making work in her spare time while she's nannying, all that stuff. Nobody, at least as far as we know, knows about her. I don't know that she aggressively pursued trying to get her work in published or any of that stuff, just kind of did it monastically. At least that's the impression from what we know. What impact does, having to earn a living and being a nanny and this sort of like disconnected work from the work, or, there's one photographer, I forget his name. I watched a short documentary on YouTube about him, and I believe his wife worked full time as a teacher, and he was a photographer. And I don't mean to assume that he didn't have any other ways of earning additional revenue, but the feeling I got from the documentary was she took care of revenue and he made work. And he went out every single day, walked miles and miles and miles through these natural and human interfered with landscapes and photographed the juxtaposition between nature and sort of the human destruction that was occurring in nature. Amazing photographs, really beautiful work. But he seemed to like, if his wife was earning the revenue that covered their responsibilities, he was sort of independently making work without any kind of pressure to earn a living. And I could be wrong about that, but
obviously that's the scenario everybody wants.
Right. Yeah. So how does that environment foster better or more meaningful work versus someone like you're saying, like the content creator being so close and you're holding a camera, you're taking pictures, you're making videos, like it bleeds in literally, like what you're saying with this adding food coloring to the water metaphor. If making the work is water and content is food coloring, and you can't separate them with that bleed. But does being a nanny and making work, that's not even food coloring. It's the water is there and is pure. You know what I mean?
No, I think about it a lot of like, I think about this at obviously I do something that's very kind of, creatively not that different from
it's in the
content creation
realm,
in the overlap. And there's times where I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of nice. And like you get to use similar muscles and things like that. But it's at the same time. And then obviously, you don't have, you would think that getting to work the skill is better than not getting to, right? That's what you would assume. And I mean, first of all, I don't know I don't know. Like that's obvious, but my intuition is like, sometimes I mean, obviously the best case scenario just being full attention to the work.
Right.
Which is hard because you know what? The days are pretty long when you start breaking them down into like micro. You try giving full attention to anything. It's not as easy as you might think it would be.
Well, that makes me wonder then, is the work fueled by that conflict between these responsibilities? You know, I have to earn a living, whether it's through commercial photography, content creation, or, being a nanny or a copywriter or something else. And does that inform the work in meaningful ways? And obviously it's a case by case basis. For some it doesn't, for some it might. There's no way to like nail down some kind of formula or whatever. But did J.D. Salinger in isolation, self exile in a sense? Nobody knows. Did he? What I assume is being able to just focus on writing. I have to imagine he wasn't like a postal worker or something, like to make some money to cover his expenses.
I mean, there really is no like just focus on this or that, because it is you're translating what you see. So if you're just like, in a room constantly, there's nothing to translate. I mean, you can translate the unconscious or like go within,
Sure.
I guess. And, you know, it's like infinite.
Try to mind your imagination, but
Yeah. And, you know, there's definitely people who can do that. But for me, the experience has always been external. I worry about, obviously, when you're spending time working, the thing that concerns me more is probably just the likelihood that you're fooling yourself, or that you're doing something and you're justifying a lack of real output or of you know, authentic output, and you're justifying that because the thing that you're doing is, well, you're like, well, I'm getting some of that here. At least I'm not letting it die.
yeah.
And, you know, if you can there's definitely people that can probably create and not do that. But I think that's probably the kind of I think that's like the equilibrium that most people are going to use it as a justification, and they're going to be like, well, I'm doing this, so like I'm working towards something. And even worse, if you're like, oh man, yeah, I've turned this into a perfect, you know, this thing over here pays this and this thing over here.
Yeah.
And if those two are the same, then that's really good. That it's obviously like the ideal situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can get we're really good at telling ourselves stories. That's kind of all we do, is we take things that are indescribable or uncorrelated, or just, you know, we take all of these ideas that are just floating around, and we try to put them into some narrative that makes sense. And we're always going to do that. It's what a story is. And our entire society is structured on stories. And it's also the most dangerous thing that we can do, I think. And that we're going to try to make us like, oh, well, I'm doing this, or I'm doing this, and this is why, and this justifies this. And then it's kind of pulling away from your potential output on something that is maybe more. I guess really the question is just ask yourself, and I sound like I'm all over the place, or at least that's what it sounds like in my head. And I might be, and I apologize if I am, but it's like, I think you need to ask yourself, what do I want to accomplish and why? Or what is the point here and why? And really think about that. And I don't mean write it in a journal and be like, okay, got it, this is my goal. I mean, really like exhaust all possibilities and get down to something or some things where you're like, this feels right. And then keep looking at it for a decade and like see if it still feels right.
Yeah.
And it might not. And you might not, it might just, you know, obviously situations and things change. But don't just pick like an arbitrary ambition and chase after it. Definitely try to, why am I doing it? Like, do I want to be an artist? Do I want to be well known? Do I like all of these things are, there's little differences to them. And like, what is an artist? Maybe like defining what that is probably the first step, because just taking it at face value, my definition isn't your definition, isn't 10 of the viewers' definitions. So figuring out what that means, and then, okay, what does it look like to do that?
Yeah.
And because I can sit here and be like, well, this is what I think it means, and this is what I think detracts from it. And then somebody else can be like, no way. And I think this, and we're having an argument, and we're really not talking about the same thing at all.
Yeah.
And that's the danger. But from where I'm coming from, it's like the purity of the work, I think, gets contaminated by almost the comfortable nature of creating a piece of, in this case, content. Or, I mean, yeah, and I think about it with work and things like that too. And, I wouldn't say scares me, but it's, it's there. The thought's there.
Well, the thing that interests me about like someone having a more, sort of traditional employment is that usually it's in a container, it's usually like a 8 to 4, 9 to 5 kind of container. And obviously we think about work depending on, if it's something as simple as, stamping sheet metal versus you're a high level executive at a human resource department or something, you're going to have bleed over into personal life or outside of that 9 to 5 container. I think the interesting thing about content creation is it tends to, and it's certainly on a spectrum for different creators, but it tends to be all consuming. And I don't mean that you're literally thinking about it 24/7, but there are some people that bring their families into the stuff that they make.
Yeah.
I was just watching a creator that I know and have met, and he's in a sort of a recreational vehicle, a build out van, and he's at the beach and he's working in the back of the van on whatever video he has to do while his kid and wife are on the beach. And it's like, it's great that this allows you to spend time with them.
Yeah.
And you're obviously taking breaks. You're probably running out and playing, talking to them, whatever. But they're in the video. Like, we know this is how, because you've pulled them into
their characters in them.
And even if they're not like having big speaking parts in the video, like your personal life is part of the content. It helps create that bond with your audience, the trust, the brand, all that kind of stuff. But there's so much bleed that, and I don't know if you wonder about that food coloring water analogy based on this, but my feeling is it bleeds into so much of your life that what room does making work have? How do you protect the time in your day?
Even if you
that
think
bleed?
you're making work, you're probably subconsciously making content.
Yeah,
if that is.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is you're just going to serve the easier master.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Or are you, even when you're making the work, are you like, oh, well, these are some issues I'm having with the Leica. These are some things I love about it. That's a good idea for a video, but you're out in the middle of nowhere trying to. Well,
and even like your case is unique, where you kind of make a lot of your living from that, like the content side of things. And I think a lot of people, it's like they might already work a 9 to 5, and they have this fantasy that, and I use fantasy like, I mean, even if somebody asks you like, hey, would you do content creation? Like, should I do content creation? You would be like, it's kind of just like, I don't know. What is your life like? Like, you can't just ask that question. It's like, what are your sensibilities? What do you like? How do you feel? How do you handle situations?
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it. What is your family situation like? What is your domestic situation like? And I think there's certain people where it's like, don't even waste your time. Like, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but it's like if you want fame, then do fame. But say you want fame and go after that.
Right.
If you want to be an artist or whatever, like, I put quotations around that word because it's hard to take it seriously. But if you want to do that, it's like, then do that. And a lot of people, there's like this fantasy for sale of, well, I'm working a 9 to 5 and I hate it and I want to be an artist. It's like, okay, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to create content and that's going to give me this, and then I'm going to be an artist. And it's like, no, you're going to create a YouTube channel and you're going to take away another 50% of your energy, and then you're going to be doing 2 things with 50% of your energy each, maybe. And this doesn't hold exactly. This isn't even a good description of what this is, but you're taking away part of your energy stockpile or whatever that is, and your focus, whatever you want to call it, and you're distilling it into these things. And then you might end up just doing 2 things that don't actually serve what you want.
Right.
And so you might be better off just, instead of and then adding a 3rd thing or whatever, you might be better off just being like, okay, I want to be an artist and, you know, you keep your 9-to-5 job and then you figure out how to make that other thing, work. I think it's just situational so much. And my problem is, it's a very easy thing to be like, I'm going to do a YouTube channel. I'm going to make money from the YouTube channel. I'm going to be an artist.
Yeah.
It's like, and then also it's like, oh, I'm going to do it. Like, really, you want fame, but you're choosing the path of photographer. You're choosing the path of as a way to get to the fame. And it's like, well, then you're I don't even mean this disrespectfully. It's impossible to say without meaning disrespectfully, but you're like whoring the art. Or
we talked about this.
thing.
We talked about hijacking.
We
talked about this.
Yeah,
where
we've
you
talked
are
about it.
Appropriating or hijacking an art form.
You might not
as a
even
tool,
realize you're doing it.
As a tool to put you on a trajectory for fame.
Yeah.
You know, 100%. I mean, and obviously if that's like
I don't want to like
thing,
dissuade people from doing, and part of it is, and most of it is subconscious, I think, because it's just people not thinking through what they actually want out of a thing, out of a situation. But I don't want to dissuade anybody from doing anything. Like, I'm just worried about kind of what I'm worried about. And, you know, but we are talking about it on a public forum, and it's just kind of how I see the.
I do think that that's part of, you know, there are many people who are working in what we perceive of predominantly as an art form, whether it's acting, photography,
screenwriting, writing,
painting,
in general,
sculpting.
Yeah.
There are, I'm sure, plenty of examples, and certain ones have more than others, especially when there's a lot of brand power behind it. Hollywood has a lot of brand power over something like New York art world, you know, but that is also a big, powerful presence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are going to be some people who set their sights on ascending to fame and power and fortune and influence and whatever, you know, those things are through that mechanism. You know, I'm going to use the craft of acting to become famous, you know, and you see it sort of strategically, you know, a musician then gets cast in a movie to expand their audience, increase revenue, build their brand. Then they go into fashion, you know.
There's plenty of examples of people too who like started out on that trajectory and that something like woke up inside of them and they ended up giving a real contribution to the world.
Yeah.
From the thing. So that's why I say I don't want to dissuade.
Sure.
Like, you're going to have that. That's going to happen.
And there are examples of people that toiled in an art form their entire life, that worked a day job or they didn't, and nobody ever heard of them. They never saw the work.
It amounted to nothing.
Right,
or
and
culturally amounted to nothing, yeah.
Oh, and then some people where it did after, you know, posthumously. They were discovered after the fact. Wasn't
the documentary?
Well, you know, obviously Vivian Maier is an example. Wasn't like Emily Dickinson, one of the female poets, you know, I feel like their work was discovered after their passing, and it was like this revelation.
Like, oh yeah,
you know, and some of that obviously wasn't their choice to subdue it. You know, in the example of Vivian Maier and this poet that I'm referring to, it certainly could have been cultural mechanisms that oppressed them and kept them from even being able to pursue work in that regard.
And sometimes you have cultural mechanisms that revive or that give a new
So
it's funny, thinking about like the Winogrand. Not saying Winogrand falls into this category, but you have people who are just like, oh well, I really like what he does here with the form, the figure in the middle of the space. Yeah, and it's like, how much do you get paid? What is it that you say you do here? Like,
So I think that, I'm just fascinated by all of that. And I like to have conversations that revolve around the curiosity about how all that works without sitting here saying, we're going to figure this out. Like,
Yeah.
if you're a content creator, this is what happens if you try to make work.
Yeah.
If you have, like, we're going to like nail it down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, it's unique to everybody. I think we're prescribing maybe like we're obviously blanketing and looking at the whole, and when we say like this is what happens, it's
Right.
obviously there's going to be somebody that has made it work or something,
or if you're
there's
this,
always
or doing this, you are not this. That
this is
not possible.
And that's kind of why I'm like, might be a pointless conversation, but at the same time, there's definitely things that you can take away from it and be like, if anything, it's just make sure that like take whatever you're doing seriously and be thoughtful about it.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure you're not just doing it because it's the thing that is expected, or because, you've logicked together some roadmap.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to be what gets you where you're, that's putting together a logic map.
Yeah.
Can be a helpful exercise, but it's not, there's no way that's going to,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to give you the best outcome all the time. And I think it's just I do think I'm curious though, like what is your state of the union right now? As you kind of shift more towards, I feel like this is kind of woken up more of the, I want to create more than I want to consume bug in you. And what do you see? Like, have any consumption habits changed, or have any creation habits? You've been selling cameras like a fiend. I know that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that the degree to which I consume has really changed. For me, I do take in a lot, and it certainly is focused around both of the worlds I'm primarily interested in. Photography as an art form, and I don't consume stuff about content creation, but I consume content that's about things that I like or am interested in. But there is definitely on the consumption side a real hunger for consuming other people's work, whether it's Kent's book here,
Mm-hmm.
a novel, going to the photography exhibit at the Jocelyn. Like I want to have meaningful consumption of artists' work.
Mm-hmm.
And that always fuels me to create boundaries between making content that, yes, some of it is related, uses the same tools and talks about an aspect of the world of photography, but to just be like, I'm going to be out making photos that are not going to then, and that process is not going to get sucked into the content machine.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's going to have an impact on it. I'm going to talk about my feelings or relate something about a camera and the settings or this or that. Like, there's no way for there not to be some overlap there.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's to the detriment of making work, so be it. Like, I at this point, I'm not sort of like, well, I'm going to cut off how I earn a living because it's more important to me to have a more sort of unpolluted or pure process for making work.
Do you get something out of if somebody came to you, I mean, this is just a dumb, but if somebody was like, hey, I want to finance you to make photography, I'm going to give you $100,000 a year and, my own personal grant,
Right.
Would
Which
you
sort of exists in the form of some grants,
Definitely,
like a Guggenheim
definitely.
or whatever. But yeah,
Would-
a patron. Yeah,
would you continue to make things, or do you think it's
I'd be open. Part of me would almost be like, let's see if they funded
Yeah.
me for a year, and not that they would ban me from making content, but
Yeah.
I would be like, well, revenue is no longer an issue for the
Yeah.
year. The only concern would be at the end of the year, did the plant die? Did
Yeah,
the
yeah,
content
yeah.
plant die? And if they're not going to fund me indefinitely, or
Yeah,
it's
that's
not enough
interesting.
money,
Yeah.
like, is this a real risk?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It could be something where it's like, well, whatever. Like, I'll spin it all back up and plant a new seed, or whatever.
I think it's
But
interesting.
I would be tempted.
What you said about, obviously the dream or the like idealized scenarios. Yeah, you don't have to work; you just have money. But I think it is. I think it's interesting what you said about the conflict kind of being the driver,
Yeah.
and like you hear a lot of talk about like, oh, when AI replaces everything, and
Yeah.
you have to, everybody's on universal basic income, and it's
Right.
like, this is a really, like, I always laugh when I hear this because I'm like, this is just the stupidest 1 + 1 = 2 argument. Like, look at how obvious this is.
Yeah.
And I think it's just not they're missing so much nuance, but it's like, oh, well, everybody is going to be on universal basic income, and then creativity is going to flourish.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's like, I wonder how much of that, like, you almost need the conflict to drive the creation. And I do really believe that. I mean, again, having prefaced that I'm very external in where I derive inspiration from and derive, energy from.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like a super introverted person, but like very much so, like the inspiration that I get comes from just like listening and observing the world.
Mm-hmm.
And, I kind of don't, you take away a lot of that conflict, and everybody just has. I mean, we're humans. We're going to create conflict one way or another.
Sure.
We're going to find conflict. There's never going to be a state of just, it just doesn't exist. It's
a
not in our
frictionless
nature.
existence where everything is.
It's not in our nature.
No.
But yeah, I think like, it's a really interesting thing that I think we give less credit for than we should, that the act of, and so then it almost doesn't make sense to complain about it, because you just accept it like, yeah, well, this is kind of what's given energy to this.
Yeah.
And there's no point complaining about it. You just do the things and then see what comes from it. And like, no point in wasting energy conceptualizing it, or to a certain extent, but I do. Yeah. I mean, that's a really powerful insight there of like, yeah, does the need to, provide kind of inspire the, yeah. So maybe it's just how we're perceiving that is kind of the derogatory force at play there.
Potentially.
It's just the negative perception of that. And we're just wasting time on that negative perception. So just move on and just make stuff anyways. Doesn't matter.
Right.
Like the situation is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, again, I enjoy wondering about how they all intermingle and coexist, or what one takes away from what the cost of this one thing is. I always think about it sort of in those terms. If I'm going to do this thing, what's it going to cost me?
Yeah.
And if you were to do the other thing, fully immersed in an artistic lifestyle, is it going to cost you, for Gary Winogrand, it probably cost him 2 marriages.
Yeah.
It could have cost him his health.
Yeah.
He passed away relatively young. There's always those kind of costs with decisions that you make, and I might get to a point where I'm like, my choices to try to earn a living, and maybe some more vain vain things that I desire, consciously or subconsciously, has built this ecosystem of content creation that I come to realize in a year, 5 years, 10 years, the cost is too great. And maybe it relates to making work. Maybe it relates to family life. Maybe it relates to something else. I don't know. And you could just, I mean, there's plenty of examples of people who just stop doing this thing that they were known for.
Mm-hmm.
They just, they're out.
Yeah.
And they go do something else or whatever, you know? So I think that kind of que sera mentality, or let it be even, is sort of just, look, you're feeling pulled to do this, pushed to do this, sort of a pure desire to do this thing. Let it all intermingle and just continue to kind of realize what the cost of those decisions are and adjust and modify as you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's the nuance that I would add is just, be wary of kind of getting pulled into in the same way that it's not valuable to, spend a lot of time just discussing and thinking about something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is to an extent, and like it's good to verbalize what you're thinking or try to, dig to the bottom of some kind of emotion. It's good to have conversations with people. But just be wary of, there is a lot of noise.
Yes.
And how do you determine what's noise? I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
I think a lot of times noise tries to dress itself up as something that's, if you're noise, if all you have to offer is noise, then giving yourself the veneer of something that is worth time and attention. There's like, if you have no ability to create something that is genuinely worth time and attention, then the only survival mechanism is getting really good at creating the veneer of worth. Mm-hmm. And we live in a world where, most, I think there's still the same amount of stuff that's probably worth people's time and attention. But we're really good at creating the veneer that, this is worth your time and attention.
Absolutely.
True. And it's dangerous. And that, really, that's the only thing that I would push against is, and I mean, when I think of content, that's the thing that comes to mind. It's just stuff that's not worth your time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that out there. I mean, I've made some of that stuff.
Sure.
You could argue that this podcast is that. I mean, I think we try to just do what, like, we've never pretended this is anything other than just two people trying to figure out whatever idea is on our mind. And we're not going to. And, you only, the listener, the individual listener, will know if they're actually getting something out of this that is worth returning to. And that might change over time too.
Yeah.
Listeners come and go. You're at different times in your life. We're at different times in our life. I can't fight about how people relate to, again, this is just two guys in a coffee shop, essentially, two guys at a bar talking. Mm-hmm. You're overhearing that. And I just, there's so much garbage out there, and it's hard to even tell what is garbage. And when everybody's fighting to sell their thing as not garbage, it gets difficult. Yeah. Yeah. No. And I think that's the only thing that I'm like, be careful. Mm-hmm. If I had to give I don't know. From my experience, be careful. Yeah. It's really hard to create anything meaningful. It's like, you're not gonna, if you eat like shit, you're what you eat makes up your, you're not gonna be in a good physical condition or a good physical place if all the inputs are garbage.
Yes.
And I don't know.
have a healthy diet of what you consume.
Yeah.
I agree.
Be stingy.
Yeah. We all have our guilty pleasures,
Yeah.
but yeah, if you're not careful, you can really get in the weeds with some garbage out there, some noise,
Yeah.
some junk food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're going to hit you hard with it as much as they can. It's
Yeah.
on every end cap. And I mean, that also sort of not just literally in a grocery store, a gas station, but every end cap on the internet.
Yeah.
Trying to lure you into the noise. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you feel like we're like 50. Do you feel like we gave enough context? Like, I don't want to go back and start over and, carry out for another 30 minutes or get into another 30-minute thing. But like, what kind of started this? And do we need to give any, because there's kind of you talking about something that we started talking about last week with the state of, we called it like photography YouTube.
Right.
And then, yeah, we kind of started going down the rabbit hole of.
Well, I showed you Kent Andreessen's book.
Great.
And
by
then
the way, I would check that out. If you
we'll do a little.
Yeah. Do a show and tell.
Kent Andreessen's Memory Bank, which I found out about from photography YouTube, a YouTuber named Brian Burks.
I haven't spent a lot of time with it, but
yeah,
from what I saw, I'm like, this is cool. I definitely will spend more time with his work now.
And I was able to connect with Kent through Instagram, and we're best friends now. Mm-hmm. And he's going to come to the house.
Lives in Matt's basement now. He took the spare bedroom. It's his American home.
But looking at his work led to bringing up a few other photographers who we won't name, and Alex observing that the one photographer he was more familiar with had new work out, and Alex just felt like there was sort of something missing from that work for him. Whereas looking at Kent's sort of immediately identified the presence of something that that you feel drawn to. If I can say that on your behalf. And so that
I don't know about this Kent guy.
So that brought us to a conversation, especially because the photographer that we're referring to also makes content on one of the social media platforms. What effect does that have on the ability to make the work? And I don't know that we didn't immediately go from Alex seeing that person's work and not feeling that thing to going, well, maybe it's because he's a content creator, and that creates some inability to.
This isn't like a prescription either.
No,
it
was just wondering,
and
so that wondering, and obviously with me making content too, pulled us into that conversation.
I think the biggest thing that I'm just trying to apply to everything in my life is everybody's always very concerned, like, oh, do I like this? Do I need to like this? Do I like this? This is objectively, like, objective gets thrown around all the time. And I used to be like,
empirically,
I want to be the floating camera. Yeah, I want to understand. It's all in my, again, and this is just, it's really hard to have a conversation about anything like this because it kind of, it's like irony. It has a built-in self-defense mechanism. Mm-hmm. All of these things have and that's why they're prevailing. Mm-hmm. They all have built-in self-defense mechanisms that completely, and if you have a negative force with a built-in self-defense mechanism, what are you to do? That's the struggle of the 21st and 20th century is how do we defeat a negative idea with a built-in self-defense mechanism? Mm-hmm. How do we overcome? How do we move past something? And if I had the answer to that, I'd be a much but you kind of just have to realize that everything just is, and then you can either have you can have any kind of reaction to anything, and it can be positive or it can be negative. And there's no, you have people that we hold up with higher esteem than others, and people's opinions, and you can have people whose opinions you respect and disrespect. But I think the world and you as a person operate in a much healthier space if it's just spend time with things, and do I get something out of this? And then you can share that with people, and it doesn't mean anything. Like, you should never share that with a person expecting them to be like, you're right.
Yeah.
Or you're identifying something profound and you're brilliant, and I am going to follow that because you're just sharing, you're sharing vapor, and it's going to disappear, and it doesn't matter. There is no point to the sharing other than the connection.
Yeah.
And also the you hope, like when Matt shares this with me, or when I share something with Matt, usually there's an excitement there. Mm-hmm. We're sharing it because, you know what? Sharing an emotion it's one of the best things that you can get from being a human.
Yeah.
So if I'm sharing something with Matt, I'm like, man, this made me feel really sad or excited, or these are just like hyper basic, but usually it is something pretty basic, and it's like I want to share that and see if he gets that.
Yeah.
And we're friends, we're good friends, so usually we do see and get excited about similar things.
Yes.
And so it's fun. That's kind of like, but there's no great truth, and I think again we want stories for everything. We're mm-hmm. looking for some great truth, and I don't know how. You waste a lot of time searching for like the best. This is the best thing.
Right.
This is the greatest of this, and the mm-hmm. best of this, and this is the best photo. Or this person's good, this person's not. Yeah. It's like, I'm fond of this because it makes me feel like this. Maybe you'll get the similar. Everybody just turns their bass up when it gets warm out. It's crazy.
Pumping, dude.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been feeling that a lot lately. Mm-hmm. And I'll read people like reviewing something or, talking about it. I'm just like, I just roll my eyes now. And I mean, I do it too. Like I give you opinions or like talk about things on here, and that's really me doing that. Mm-hmm. And I'd roll my eyes at myself too. Don't worry. Like I'm not, taking myself out of this. I'm just like, it's just dumb though. It's just like really silly. And I'm just like, oh God, the last thing I need is more, I don't know, find people who you like similar things to, and then share with each other mm-hmm. and see what comes from it.
Yeah. And
create from that place. And I think you'll probably make something that's better and more, has more of a chance of, connecting to another person.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because a couple of weeks ago we were talking about the Tolstoy, and I'm like, I don't know. His definition of what art is kind of like something that connects, or like you sharing an emotion through a piece of work that another person is able to grasp.
To feel that, yeah.
It's like I kind of just described described that in a sense, and I might not necessarily agree with it, but I think I agree with a lot of it, and I think that I think it's a good, with some asterisks, not in like a way that like, oh, that's wrong. Who am I to be like, oh, Tolstoy actually forgot to, wasn't considering, but I just think context changes and things like that. But I mean, everything's got to have this grandiose like narrative and descriptor, and everything's got to have this like connection of myth, and I just don't know if we're
right.
Just kind of
or even with what
just
we're doing,
jerking ourselves off
what
all the
you're
time.
doing in your lives. Like after this conversation, I could sit there and go into a tailspin, going, am I earning a living and making work the right way?
Yeah.
Am I doing something wrong that I more that I like more than I dislike making content? Am I doing something wrong by letting what I hope is making work and making content bleed together? Am I excluding does that exclude the possibility of making work that I think is meaningful or I like or am proud of? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and
Yeah.
try to turn this gaseous thing into a solid. I'm just going to go through it, reflecting on what feels not good, but what feels like the right thing for me to keep doing.
Yeah.
And I certainly am going to deploy introspection and self-awareness and go, sort of what feels like the thing that you're serving here. Is it something vain? Is it something shallow? Is it something just a surface thing? Or are you in a more deeply focused way connecting with something else?
Yeah.
Beyond the noise, beyond the distractions, beyond the dopamine, beyond the pleasure.
Yeah. And we can sit here all day and complain and be like, oh, well, the dopamine is terrible. And like, this is what's, and I think a lot of it's just scapegoating. Like it's kind of, it's like the letter that you showed me. And the letter in this book, I just sold the book. No. It is like, that stuff's going to be there, and we might live in an environment that kind of perpetuates it, maybe more than it has been in the past or whatever, but don't complain about it. Like it's up to you.
Yeah.
Like it's up to, like, if you don't like it and you don't do anything about it, that's your fault.
Yeah.
And you can be like, well, everything's against me, and like the whole, system is structured to where this is the only, and it's like, that's always how things are. If you don't like being overrun with dopamine because Instagram takes all your time, delete it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I can't because X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
It's like, well, then think about that. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, what are you asking for? Like, what do you, if you're making the complaint and you've identified a thing and then you don't want to do anything about it, then what's the point in continuing the conversation on that? And that's a very pragmatic kind of way of approaching something. But it's, at that point, the only emotion that you're transmuting is negativity. And it's like, there's plenty of that. What do you have to offer beyond that? So, yeah. And I mean, you get the same thing with like, yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of, there's a lot of things that I can look at and point to and be like, I don't agree with the way we do things there. I don't agree with how that's structured. I don't agree with how that's structured. And the only thing that I can do is attempt to live my life in a way that, says, hey, I don't agree with that, or I don't do that. And you know what? That's just, if I wake up and I'm like excited, if I wake up and I go to bed and between I do what I want to do, like it's a Dylan quote. It's like, that's it. Great. That's kind of, I don't know. Things aren't as complicated as we like to make them out to be, and things are infinitely complicated. And both of those things are true at the same time.
Yeah.
And like life is just full of greeting cards and, yeah, I don't know. Nobody has any answers. Nobody knows anything. And yeah, you can learn something from everybody.
Yes.
It's like,
and you can learn something from all the decisions you make to do something or not do something, to consume something or not consume something,
to think something or not think something. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I don't know if It's interesting. We get on these conversations, and I just get to this place where I'm like, nothing is real. Everything is like,
It's all vapor.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just, a lot of that's what photography. That really is what interests me in photography and film, and it's dealing with quote unquote raw material and turning it into something, and how powerful the human mind is at turning anything into something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It's something that we've explored for our entire existence, and we'll continue to explore as long as we're around.
Mm-hmm.
Just the mind's ability to make things out of raw material.
Well, and for me, when I go out, I I think of it as sort of like what you just said earlier, sort of like you keep trying to want to nail something down, or this is right or that's wrong or whatever, and sometimes it's just it's just the state of something, what it is. It just is this.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm out, I am interested in slipping into this realm of something that just is.
Yeah.
And I feel like when something motivates me to take a photo, obviously aesthetic beauty will sometimes trigger the desire to take a photo, like, oh, these multicolored houses all in a row with the light hitting them perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's kind of an obvious photo, but I like it, so I'm going to take it as a memento.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to the work, it's sort of like, I just, like this morning, I was at an estate sale and I had my camera with me, and there was light coming in on an end table, and the dust and the arrangement of the items on there, like the isness of it, I'm like, I'm taking a picture of this. I had the same feeling when I drove away. I was about to turn right off of a gravel road onto another road, and I just looked to my right, and there were 2 telephone poles, a hill, a blue sky, and dirty snow in the ditch. And there was something about that I'm like, this is something. I'm not consciously thinking of that, but I'm like, I feel like this is one of those instances where I'm sort of slipping into the realm of how something is, and there's something there, and I'm going to try to take a photo of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And I feel like when I look at Kent's work or William Eggleston's work or Gary's work, there are a lot of examples of that thing that I try to be sensitive to without nailing, like, this is an is photo, this is just a cool aesthetic beauty, or this is a freakish miraculous coincidence and they happen to snap the shot. There's nothing particularly isness about it. It just, it's a miracle that all those things happen together.
Yeah.
So it's
that is a lot of things, right? You could see that as anything that has a lot of potential to read to, depending on what somebody's experience is. That has a lot of potential to live as a lot of different things.
Right. So, and I, when I'm out photographing things, I'm not like, oh, that was, you were working through some psychological barriers and you worked up the courage to take the photo, and you care about the photo because it represents you pushing through those barriers. The photo is nothing great. It's a guy in a street smoking a cigarette, and you got within 5 feet of him and boldly took a photo, versus, again, something else where you feel like when you look at it, you're staring into some other realm or level of consciousness or state of isness. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just, there's something in it.
Yeah.
That just is like,
whether that's the familiar or the unfamiliar.
Something.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of examples too. I don't think it's just like a one something. I think there's a lot of things that you can tap into, or I don't even know if that's a good way to. I'm just really, what's bugging me is like how unprecise all of my
articulation
is today. And
It's all that brain rot from consuming all the noise all the time,
well,
Alex.
it's like a striking lack of thoughtfulness. And I'm here and I'm trying to talk through. I'm obviously, by the way, this is our 69th episode.
And final. We're done
we're
at
done.
60.
We're gonna do 69 minutes and we're out.
Doesn't matter if you're mid-sentence. 69.
We've done a lot, and I'm just a little bit disappointed in my ability to be clear, but not be. Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's hard to be clear about something that.
Well, it's hard to be clear about something that doesn't exist,
right? Yeah, or something that is just nebulous and gaseous, and yeah.
And I'm sure there's somebody that might be. It's like, oh well, you're just talking in circles and you're not saying anything. You're just saying a lot of nothing that sounds like something or what. And no, I mean, I'm trying to articulate something that's very clear to me. Just not the syntax isn't there for it, or like like the way I'm structuring it is just inefficient at communicating how I actually feel about it.
The beauty of it is that you can continue to.
I need to
think
work
about
on
it,
refining this. Like
think
this
about
is,
it,
yeah.
and find other ways to express it or articulate it. But I mean, that is the whole point of studio sessions. We are
literally
positioning these things to again, not to nail them down and turn them from gas to solid, but to just sort of develop an awareness or challenge each other to think about things in a different way, or to have you thought about this and struggle to connect the dots, or I feel clear about this. I feel like it pertains to this, or it feels like this, but at the same time, language is it's a limited tool. You can't,
well, especially when you're an idiot.
you can't, you have a feeling, and it is not easy.
Yeah.
To manifest it in a way where the audience goes, yeah, that's it. That's it. That's that. Yep.
I mean, I can definitely do a better job.
Sure.
I can get more approximate to what I'm.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
But maybe that's episode 169 where it comes together, and you're like, remember 69? We talked about that. Like, I kind of think I have a better handle on it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Just make this shit up as we go.
That's kind of it. Yeah. I do wonder, what it's like watching from the beginning, and
I do too. Yeah. Like,
I'm sure there's some things that we've progressed on, or not even. Again, there I am, like giving the stupid fucking like linear meta. Like I really am trying to just remove that from my conceptual, like how I conceptualize the world around me. And I feel like I do a better job about it in consciousness than I do in communication.
Yeah.
Our communication is so grounded in that metaphor.
Yeah.
And it's astonishing when you start to really pay attention to it. It's like catching yourself saying like.
Yeah.
Fuck. Oh, it's hard to not do. Yeah. And you wonder how much that subconsciously carries into just how you perceive everything.
Yep.
And it's just complete fabrication. But
I always look at it, and this is, you could argue this linear too, as a sort of nebulous mass, and you are sometimes pulling yourself to great heights to observe as much of it on a macro scale as possible, and then also going into the little bits in between atoms to try to try to see things.
I think just removing scale entirely is
potentially
the more and
well, you're translating an ethereal thing into a visual construct, into some kind of visual some metaphor,
kind of limited.
But you're trying to take this feeling, and you're saying food coloring and water. You're saying just a line. Start, finish. Or lack of understanding to awareness and understanding, or the thing that I use.
Our language is so limited, and it's yeah, it's important to think in metaphors and think about the metaphors that you're kind of using. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer.